Ruelha from Bots and Drones, and today I have a very special guest joining me, Mr. Amit Dutta, who is the chairman of the CII Task Force on Advanced Air Mobility. And Mr. Datta also happens to be the managing director of Hunch Mobility. So he's got a lot of insights and a lot of knowledge to share with us because we're right now at the forefront of revolutionizing urban transportation in India. We're going to be discussing Mr. Datta's vision for the future, the objectives of this task force, and of course, the very exciting Urban Air Mobility Exposition 2025, which will be held in Greater Noida from Jan 19th to 22nd. So, without further ado, firstly, welcome Mr. Datta.
Thank you, Ruelha.
Thank you. So, let's just dive in with all the questions that have been boggling my mind as of now, and surely all of our viewers and all the people who are familiar with our platform on bots and drones. Mr. Datta, I'd like to ask you firstly something very basic, about just if you could give me an overview of the CII task force and what exactly motivated them to come up with the task force, what kind of objectives they are looking at, and a little brief on your team members. That would be great.
Great. So, Ruelha, I'll start by a quote I used in the ASHA conference in March, when what prompted the task force. We earlier saw the content on the Jetsons and the other movies and thought we were all science fiction, right? And I used a term saying that today the future of urban air mobility is closer than you think, right? On that. So it's no more in the realm of what may happen in the future. It's about when. And that actually is the reason why we set up the CII task force, because globally there is hectic work happening on developing electric craft, on urban air traffic management systems, right? And as far as India was concerned, there was a need that we were really not alive to what was happening globally, and we needed an industry body to work with Ministry of Civil Aviation, with the private sector, so that we are very well prepared for the transformation in short haul mobility. As I said, is we've seen several disruptions changing India, whether it is fintech, right? It is Geo, which is doing that on digital, Netflix doing that on content, and short haul mobility is possibly another area waiting to get disrupted. And India can play a first mover advantage here, because we will be one of the largest markets for short haul mobility because of our urban congestion and population, right? So why India, right? And I'll come to that in the task force. In India, our number of cars are 22 per thousand. The US, 950 per thousand.
Okay.
We start progressing to becoming the third largest economy within the next few years, the rise in our car density will only keep going up. We are at about 300 million vehicles on the road today, the largest number of vehicles anywhere in the world. So, in an attempt to prepare the country for this emerging transformation on short haul mobility, and the term we use, Ruelha, is really urban air mobility. That's how it started. But NASA recently redefined it as called advanced air mobility, because it will also find usage in other areas like rural for air ambulances, medical, disaster relief. So the more I was modernized form of what was urban air mobility is being defined as advanced air mobility, right? So that's the purpose. And we brought together people from different mainstreams, from the aviation industry, in the electric craft, from those who are looking at battery charging, battery panels, state governments, existing aircraft, right? A lot of other interested bodies, right? From consultancy companies, right? From the academic institutions, basically to build a thought process, right, as to what's the best way on taking it for country forward, and working very closely with the Ministry of Civil Aviation in actually formulating policy and getting the country ready to for the change that we see on what I call advanced air mobility.
Okay. Wow, that was already very insightful. That already answered a lot of my questions. A lot of good statistics thrown out there that really makes you think that the congestion in our urban population is growing so rapidly. But are we really prepared with considering infrastructure? Do we have the infrastructure both in urban areas as well as, like you mentioned, we would like to extend it to rural areas also in the future? What is the current state of our infrastructure? How welcome are we to this?
Yeah, I think that's really as it also answers why the need for the task force is a lot of people when they looked at short haul air mobility. Yeah, it's a couple of years ago, we've got time, and that's why I use the phrase, the future is closer than we think. There is a need to upgrade infrastructure. So let's look at what are the two critical areas of infrastructure. One
Okay.
is, first of all, dealing with the technology part, saying that it's bringing in the technology of electric, what they call eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing, right? It does not necessarily mean it's electric only. There could be other alternative forms, but one of the key parts say they are at all green energy, sustainable, right? And that's really what makes them more appealing. And from a point of noise is much less noise, right, as
Okay.
compared to the traditional helicopter. Now, where will these craft take off and land, right? They are designed as vertiports. So today, if you see in heliports, right, heliports would have a fuel tank, you all of that. Now here you need a battery charging setup. You need a power cable, right, for charging. So this is what is called vertiports. And there is a company called Skyports, which has developed the world's first vertiport in Paris, right? And now they are now developing the others, I think, in Dubai. So there is a need now to upgrade our heliports to vertiports. But first, starting with heliports, we have actually very few heliports in the country which are usable, right? But what in fact we do need is parcels of land across the key cities, other areas, to get this network of vertiports slash heliports. And that could actually be a partnership between the government. The government actually owns a lot of land, right? So they could participate with the private sector in making these spaces available, because think of it like it's a intra-city bus terminal. You need the bus depots across the city, right? For that you need space, right? On that. So we have that today? No. But there are options. We could use existing airports. A lot of state governments have got disused heliports and they are opening that up. There are other parcels of land which could also get used, right? And so that's one on the vertical. Second comes on, what you call as the air traffic management system. Today, we are really designed for managing craft flying at 30,000 feet. But tomorrow, with both eVTOLs and with drones in huge numbers coming in, you need a more automated air traffic management system, which is going to handle all varieties of craft and on much larger numbers, right? So that's the second area where a lot of work is done internationally. And the Ministry of Civil Aviation is looking at that very, very closely to develop our own UATM, right? The urban air traffic management, to deal with the pathway in the skies,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So you said, are we ready for it? I don't think any country is, right? All countries have really put the development of the craft, because post the development, there are a series of regulatory hurdles, because safety is very paramount. See, unlike the fixed wing aircraft started and they flew over rural countryside where the density of population was not high, the electric craft are going to be flying over the most heavily populated urban areas. Safety becomes the primary consideration, and hence the checks on safety by agencies like the FAA, YASA are more stringent because they will test them for those standards, right? So as that is happening, it's not sequential. Okay, we'll develop the craft tomorrow. We'll start working on urban air traffic management. Globally, there's a lot of work happening on all these activities, and I think the question that you started with, why are we looking at what is the task force doing and the conference it is doing, is bringing a lot of that global experience, global insights into India, so it acts as a seeding ground for for the Indian decision makers, regulatory agencies to start working on those aspects.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. And but for a common man, for a common civilian, like in layperson's terms, we're actually just trying to figure out, is it, what are the benefits in terms of pricing, in terms of time, how is it helping me, why would I choose this mode of transport which is so novel, which I'm probably scared of because it's so new, I know nothing about it. How would you compare the benefits to an absolute lay civilian?
Sure. Ruela, which city do you reside in, Ruela?
One of the most congested cities in India, Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay. So, Ruela, in 2003, I joined Reliance Infocom to
Okay.
help launch the wireless service, right? At that
Okay.
point of time, people were only used to a fixed line, right? And cell phone used to cost you 16 rupees a minute, right? And if you recall, in 2003, we launched Reliance Infocom at 40 paisa a minute, right? And I used to be the marketing head at that point of time. When you present consumers with a convenience, it did not take any time for them to move from that traditional fixed line phone, right, to a convenience, right? So consumer adoption, as long as there's a consumer need, you will see that adoption, right? And I give that corollary. At that point of time, the cell phone at 16 rupees a minute was for a very, very upper elite of people, right? Who did the wireless industry target? In Mumbai, they targeted the fishermen who were going fishing, so that they connected with the, if I may say, the more blue collar society, for whom the telecom revolution had a huge productivity in the revenue, right? Adoption happened very quickly, right? Now let's say, as you said, you live in Mumbai. From the airport, right? Let's say you were to go to South Mumbai, and it would take you maybe an hour and a half. And you said, for the cost of a Ola, you could actually come home in 15 minutes. There is no reason why you would not adopt it, right? Because you would find consumers, right, willing to adopt new technology if it adds to their convenience. Sure, there are matters like safety, but it would not be launched if those things were not taken care of, right? Now, the today, what do we have? We have helicopters. Unfortunately, the helicopter, which is propulsion system, is an expensive engine. So it's much more expensive to do that sort of service today for the mass consumer. But as you have electric craft coming in, they bring three advantages. As I said, absolutely green energy, sustainable energy, no noise. And from a cost point of view, while initially they may be a little bit more expensive, but over time, their cost will actually mimic what it may take you for a Ola, right? And that will democratize urban air mobility to a very large extent, right? Now, there have been studies done in a lot of European cities on consumer adoption of this technology, right? And surprisingly, they've all welcomed it, because what's working in its favor is the fact that if you are in Mumbai today, you may see two, three helicopters at times flying over you. Tomorrow, you've got 500 of this electric craft. It's going to be a menace if they were all noise producing, right? So the fact that they do not make noise is a huge factor on the consumer acceptance, because I wouldn't want something in my neighborhood, right? If it made that amount of noise, it was a menace, right? And that's the first area where there's been a lot of research in European countries, right, on testing consumer adoption, right? Now, I'm not getting into a spacecraft going to the moon, I'm getting into a craft which is, like I said, it's like a helicopter, right? On that. And it's just that the propulsion system is different. And to your point is initially, eVTOLs will all be piloted, right? They will all be with a pilot, just like you have in a helicopter. But over time, you will have a lot of this moving to autonomous, right? So imagine it to be like a cable car, right? On that. Or if you were to take a metro, Ruelha, right? You don't know whether that metro's got a drive. Today, a lot of the metros are all driverless, right? On that. Yeah, but that is actually going to be one of the challenges. Consumers need to be satisfied with the safety, efficiency. I think once that does, right, you see consumers overlap, I would say, leapfrogging adoption of technology.
Surely, we see a lot of benefits there, but there are certainly certain, probably some limitations in terms of last mile options. Like as of now, at least we're probably not equipped enough to, use eVTOLs as the last mile options. Or are we there yet? Do we see that happening somewhat in the near future?
You see, you have to think of eVTOLs will have varied objectives. As I said, they will be used for disaster relief. They will be used for air ambulance, right? For organ transfers, medical, and to a large extent, as I said, they will be used for maybe like today in Hunch mobility, we run Bombay to Shirdi, right? On that, which is the more religious pilgrimages. A 7 hour by road takes you 1 hour, right? It could also be a place where where it's a long circuitous journey. We do Bangalore to Kurg and to Kabini, again 7 hour journeys. You bring it down to an hour. But I think a huge part of this is going to be intracity, which is from the airport to the city center, right? In fact, in Bombay, Ruelha is, today you take the airport close by in Juhu. Tomorrow, when the new airport comes by car, is going to take you closer to 2.5, 3 hours to get back, right? Similarly, in places like Bombay, in Pune, what we do see urban air mobility developing is what is mixing into the overall transportation network in the city. So it has to be interoperable, which means that you're basically starting a urban air mobility service, maybe near could be even a bus station, could be a metro station, so that it is linked to other means of transport. It is not starting to endpoint. Just like we today got metro stations, if I may use a corollary today, when you get off in a metro station, just after you get off the metro, you got other modes of transport like maybe your Olas and Ubers, maybe an auto rickshaw, which take you to the last point. Think of this as a part of the overall mass transportation network, right? Especially when you look at intracity.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense then. That definitely makes sense. But if we're talking only about the exhibition in Jan, what do you think attendees can expect, by attending it? What do you think they're up for?
So, what I said is while India is already, I think, is the fourth largest aviation market, right, out here. But and the a number of craft are growing so rapidly. But when it comes to certain regulatory clearances put together, you'll find bodies like DGCA will first go by what the countries like FAA or EASA have first adopted, right, on that. Now, there is absolutely no doubt that India today is one of the largest potential markets for short haul mobility, right? When we did the ASHA conference in Bangalore in March 23, we had a number of experts from across the globe coming and talking about what are they doing. We had CEOs of eVTOLs coming and talking to the government, right? We had a lot of other decision makers, airport authorities in other countries coming and talking as to what's their experience. That provided a lot of insight, right, to the decision maker here. Okay, this is what is happening elsewhere. This is what we need to do, right? So for that conference, we had not just the Honorable Minister for Civil Aviation at that time, Mr. Sindhya, but the heads of DGCA, the Secretary Civil Aviation, all come in and sit and understand, how this transformation is taking place. We will replicate exactly the same here because we are bringing in experts and electric craft manufacturers of air traffic management systems, vertiports across the world coming and talking about how they are building, as well as maybe like we've got, I think, Munich airport, which is participating, a lot of these international airports, which are also going to facilitate an electric craft coming and talking about how they are moving forward with the change. So one is the entire information sharing, a lot of the panels, conferences that will happen for a lot of these participants to also pose questions to the regulatory authorities in India, saying, we are ready with our craft. This is what we need from the regulatory authorities for them to respond to and help. There will be an actual demonstration. So we have a couple of eVTOLs that we are going to do actual demonstrations that will actually fly. That's the reason why we are doing it here, to demonstrate that this is what a craft looks like, right? It's not out of a science fiction movie, right? It's there. This is what it looks like, right? And for those where we have prototypes, which we are not going to fly, it will give you an actual prototype of this is what the craft is going to look like. These are what are the some other technologies that go along with it. So I think those are the key benefits that we look at in the January 25 show.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. So we'll get to see a lot, especially as a drone enthusiast. We have a lot of readers and a lot of people who approach our platform, the marketplace, who are just drone enthusiasts. They're probably not drone pilots or engineers or anyone linked to the industry, but they're just very excited about drones and the way this technology is shaping up in India. So you clarified there's a lot for them also to come and visit and understand how the market is shaping up and what are the changes that the policymakers and DGCAs are probably up to. So I definitely encourage all our viewers to, if they are in Greater Noida at that point, somewhere around the capital, they should go and visit. It would be very insightful to them.
But
But
add on to
apart,
that, well, what it will also open up is lot of other ancillary opportunities in that area, right? Now, I don't know if you'll ask me that question, but let's say pilots. Today, we have less than 250 helicopters in the country.
okay.
80% is for oil and gas. Imagine a scenario where we've got 5,000 to 8,000 electric craft. Now, that is going to need a very different breed of pilots. All of this is going to create a lot of other job opportunities, skills development, right? Which actually, could be a great opportunity for, the young generation in our country. That's one. Second, as India, emerges as one of the largest markets, we've got international manufacturers who are looking at actually assembling manufacturing in India for their requirements overseas, right? As an example, battery charging, battery panels, right? So it does provide a lot of job creation for people who could be interested, right? So as you talk to your audience, right, is apart from just the curiosity, I think they're real, I would say, work opportunities that the growth of this industry will create.
Okay, that's a very interesting angle, especially now if we see the Sensex, it's dropping every day. There's recession setting in certain places of the world. So when we talk about job opportunities and trade, it's quite a positive note, especially the ancillary job opportunities that you mentioned. Do you have any specific, kind of numbers? What kind of numbers do you think anticipate in terms of job opportunities and industry growth, especially in this context?
So, Royal, to be honest, I think I don't have any real numbers, right? But closer to the time, I'm sure there will be projections by various agencies on, let's start with saying helicopter pilots, right? As we come closer to 26, when we expect commercialization of this, there'll be more or less an accurate, numbers. What do we think the market's going to be? But this is from my experience, Ruelha, is, when I come back to telecom, when in 2003, the market was 200,000 fixed line phones, right? And someone asked me, what do you think the cellular market will be in the next 5 years? right, on that. Now, I'm glad I never gave an answer, because if I'd given a number of 5 million, they said you've got to be dreaming. The fact that you went in 10 years to a billion phones, right? When disruption happens, is very difficult to predict, Ruela. And this, as I said, is a market where you are likely to see disruption. A lot will depend also on pricing. There are other factors, right? There is so difficult to put an exact number. But what is very clear is that this is an emerging sector. The fact that we're looking at the skies as a transportation medium more for the mass consumer going forward, that is not going away.
Okay. Okay. So we have a very positive outlook on consumers within this space, and we don't have absolute numbers or projects that at projections at this point, which is obviously practical. But what kind of KPIs have you set? Like, what kind of things are you looking at that would indicate that okay, this has been a successful exposition, and okay, I'm happy with what has happened. This is what I was expecting, and this is the outcome.
Okay, so while we haven't yet formulated exact but I think, let's say, what are the let's put it, what are the objectives that we aim to do? One is aim to have a couple of actual demonstrations of eVTOLs so that the consumers get a sense that this is what the future looks like. So that's one, not actual demonstrations, right? The second is to have a fairly large group of, let's say, displays of eVTOL technology so that it serves as an education ground for all the decision makers here in India. And I think the third one is ensuring that through the conferences that we do, we've got a very good participation from global experts, right, around the world, on those who are in various aspect of the, if I call the UAM value chain. They could be manufacturers of eVTOL, they could be in air traffic management technologies, they could be vertiports, they could be in other parts. They come and participate in India, right? And in turn, we also have the representation from the right decision makers in India, which is DGCA, Ministry of Civil Aviation, because in the end, they play a very critical role in designing policy, in designing, all in expediting the rollout of this entire program. So I think if that exchange of information happens, right, that would become a very important outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. But as an end consumer, now I'd probably be on that end of the spectrum. I'm just the direct consumer. When can I expect to probably use advanced air mobility in a city like Mumbai? When do you think these changes will come to me? When can I actually, find this to be a tangible reality?
So, it'll be a mix between, as I said, to quote, take an old quote, is blowing in the wind, right? To saying that uh, when do regulatory approvals take place? So, the fact is that there are close to 170 manufacturers of electric craft globally who today have got products ready and are looking for certification. Now, given current estimates, is expected that sometime from 26, late 26 onwards, we will start, right? We'll start, let's say, initial flights in India. Now, it's not that the first flights in India are likely to happen over the most urban, dense populations. They may happen in areas, right? That's what the roadmap is, in areas which are less populated, right? But the concept of a electric craft, right? Doing a commercial flight in India, right? Depending on the rules, I think sometime in 26, and globally as well. I think that's around the same time frame. We've got some ventures in India also which are developing their craft around the same time frame. That's what they have quoted, right? And there are places like Dubai which are also saying that we will allow commercialization as early as 25, but that's going to be more on select routes. So I think, I would say that given current information, I think sometime late 26 is a reasonable time frame to see them in service.
Okay, okay, that's quite a relief actually, considering that in Mumbai there's going to be a new airport that is quite on the outskirts of the city. So it's quite a relief to most of Mumbai's population that we'd probably be able to reach the city in time.
But that's not you are not the only city. It's happening across. What's I'm in Delhi, so the new Jewar airport, right? Today to reach Gurgaon, from Gurgaon to the airport would take me 35 minutes. To go to Jewar will take me 3.5 hours, right? So that's the same for Bangalore, for Mumbai, and that's exactly the issue, Ruela, that across some of our major metros, you will find that the airports are getting larger and larger, and they're becoming at a further distance from the main city. So the
Mhm.
airport to the city center, right, will become a major route. Like, for the joint venture partner in Hunch Mobility we have, which is Blade. They run a super service from New York City in Manhattan, right, from the east to JFK and to Newark airports, right? And that typically would have been an hour and a half, 2 hour journey. They do it in 8 minutes, right, on that. So yeah, while of course the situation there is a bit different, right? They don't have the sort of density we have, but the airport to Manhattan in 8 minutes compared to an hour and a half is a huge advantage.
Most certainly is. And such a relief and such an insightful conversation I've had with you, Mr. Datta. I don't know. There's so many takeaway points that I don't know what exactly to conclude with, apart from the fact that I'm really looking forward to this exposition in January. Please go and attend, all of you who are watching this. Drone enthusiasts, pilots, industry experts, or just lay people in general, because this is coming to you quite very soon. It's going to be a reality very soon. And thank you, Mr. Amit, for talking to us and explaining everything so beautifully and in simple terms that, people like me also would be able to understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Datta.
Thank you.